In the village that we lived in, La Victorina, Zacatecas, there wasn't a lot of opportunity.
Life growing up in Mexico, for me, it was an experience that is unforgettable. I have so many good memories. Our village is a place where there's mountains, rivers, trees, animals.
I mean, there's no cars, it was all horsebacks. So I'm there at 4 years old and I'm riding a donkey. I mean, we used to take a donkey everywhere. And I remember, having a donkey that I used to ride. So I thought that was super cool.
As a kid, I remember playing with a slingshot all the time. Where we lived was very desert-like. And I remember just picking up rocks and shooting it at birds and all kinds of stuff. My dad had a horse and he would tie a rope to his horse and put a rope to a donkey where I got to ride a donkey. I was 3, turning 4, and then I would get to go where my dad was going, alongside the river, alongside mountains.
Very good memories. We used to play with just very, very basic things like sticks. It was pretty simple life from what I remember.
But also I like climbing trees, and I used to play with dolls that I made myself out of sticks. I made dolls and dressed them with leaves. And it was ugly, but I loved it. It was a very ugly doll. We had like a glass, then we would collect fireflies, and then we would use those as to light up or wherever we were sitting down or whatever. And it was the funnest thing to do. And we didn't want them to die because we loved them. So we catch them, cover them, and put them in a glass jar just for a little bit, and then we would let them go. And then we would collect them again, The river was very nice river. I mean, when you went there and it was, not when it was cold, but when it was warm, you kind of wanted to get in the water, just swim.
I learned how to swim at a very young age because that river was nearby.
At that age, and from my perspective, life was fun. I had my brothers and sisters, I had my mother, my father. We had farm animals, we got to milk cows. I didn't really know the extreme conditions that we lived in.
When we were in La Victorina, our home had only 1 bedroom. It was like a pretty good sized bedroom. We had our own bed, but we shared along with our parents. And I do remember kind of listening to my parents' conversation and finding out as they talk among themselves when it was my dad's timing to come to the United States.
Oh, well, I remember my father coming to the United States. So he would come and work seasonal jobs.
So and I remember like covering with my pillows and just crying because we knew that for some reason every time that my dad came, we got very, very sad.
I remember that part being really hard for my mom. So it was very hard seeing my dad go away because we didn't know how long he was gonna be gone, when we would see him. He could be gone for a year. He could be gone for a year and a half, up to 2 years. So we didn't know. So I remember when he left was very hard on all of us, especially my mom.
And maybe because we knew we had seen relatives or other men that will try coming into the United States and they came back in a coffin. So I think as a child seeing that, it was very, very hard because we knew my dad will leave us behind again, but we didn't know in what kind of form he will be back. So it was just like an empty home every time he left.
It was really hard on my mom because she had these children she had to take care of, and she had to cook, and she had to pretty much do everything from scratch. Not pretty much, everything was done from scratch. She cooked all the time for us. I mean, there was a lot of us to feed.
To get even vegetables, you had to go to the next town. I believe the trip was close to an hour. My mom would make that trip once a week. There wasn't a local grocery store. So she had to make that a 1-hour trip. We didn't own a car, so we had to depend on somebody in town that had a pickup truck. Usually people just piled onto the back of the pickup truck. And if there was room for you that morning, and then they would take you to the Huejuquilla, which is the town where we lived. The town of Huejuquilla is where we went to school. La Victorina didn't have a school, so we lived in Huejuquilla when we went to school during the year, and then during what would be here summer break, we would go back to La Victorina.
I can say that it was hard, but then again, it was fun because we made it as fun as it could be. That's the only life that we knew. So. But it was hard on the way that my dad will come to the United States almost every year, and we were responsible to help her with running the house and taking care of the cows and we did not have one running water, so we were responsible to walking over to the closest river with buckets, filling them up with water and bringing them into the house, because that was our cooking water, drinking water. We didn't have electricity or gas. We will survive cooking our meals with wood. There was the river had plenty of water. We knew that it had left some water behind, so my mom will wake us up like early in the morning, like at 3, 4 in the morning, before the other people from the village will get up. So that way we had a chance to pick up this wood, pile that up, and carry it back home. When the summer time came, our village was completely out of water. So that meant there was not enough drinking water for us and not enough drinking water for the animals. I also remember going to the farthest river, because now you had to travel a little bit farther to get buckets of water and fill containers for these cattle to survive.
It's never safe to drink water that's just running, the running water from the river. On the side, they made like a well. The water was filtered, and we just filled the water from that well into our buckets. And then we carried it back. And sometimes you would trip over and, hey, that's it. Now you had to go back and get more water. When water was close, it was easier.
Getting our drinking water, we walked maybe no more than 15 minutes. But if it was summer, and then that meant we walked farther. And this will be up to maybe 2 hours to find water and then bring it to the house. So it all depends on the timing of the year.
It was like an adventure always. And it was a job, but I enjoyed it.
When I said that there was a scary memory, this is another place. We call it the Cueva del Puente, which translates as a bridge cave.
My mom and my dad, they were away. They left us behind. They were in the United States. And during that time, we needed to move up to the mountains so that the cattle had a lot more food. And I remember living under a cave that kind of seemed like a bridge. We lived there for 2 months, along with my older sister, some of my younger siblings that had stayed behind, and my grandfather and my grandmother. The experience living in that cave was very hard and scary, especially at night. The cave had like open ends, so it was just like a bridge. So we had no doors to close at night. Anyone was welcome to walk in and out. So we were afraid of not only strangers that will probably cross through, or even animals.
It was almost kind of unbelievable, because who in their mind will take their family to live in this out in the wild with no protection or nothing? But I mean, back then, what we know, there was no danger. It was safe, and it was a beautiful place.
I was 4, about to turn 5. I mean, we were walking across the border in the dead of night, and I just remember them just spraying down our pants. It smelled like gasoline, but it would just burn your nostrils.